How do we find the top momentum companies on the ASX? That's one of the most frequent questions that we get. And for the members who have access to this list, which helps us stay on top of those top momentum companies, they ask how to use it. So this video is answering both questions. The top momentum companies on the ASX we report every Thursday to the members through the 30/30 list. The columns here, momentum rank, code, and company name, they are pretty straightforward. Where it gets interesting is the momentum score. The darker the green, the stronger the quarterly momentum. So first place here has 0.65 all the way down to 0.2 in 30th place. Question then comes, well, how does that compare to other companies in the last week? How does it compare to other companies on the ASX? Now, we do filter out some of the small cap companies that have very small turnover because they can blow the numbers out massively. Generally, we're getting between 550 and 850 companies, depending on how liquid the market is and the turnover. If we look at the performance rank, we can see that first place, OBT, has the second best performance on the ASX this week, up 85.7%. Looking great. Third place, though, AZ9, well, they're ranked 524th, and that's with a drop of 11.4%. This hasn't been their week. But this is quarterly momentum, so how does that look? First place, OBT, well, that's a massive movement of 875%, and that's got them in first place on the ASX. How does it compare to other companies on the ASX? Well, we've got some big movers here for the quarter, 416, 377, 241% rise over the quarter. They're big moves, and these companies are all in the top 30 momentum for today. Looking at these top 30 momentum companies, those gains trickle down to 100%, 50%, and even down to 10%. With a big flick in the more recent times because you can see they rallied 22% in the last week. So that's how they look in the last quarter compared to the rest of the ASX. The question we often get is, well, do these companies keep performing? Yes, they do. Once they hit the momentum list, we can have serial offenders where they just consistently sit on top of this list for weeks and weeks and sometimes months on end. As you can see here, we cap the numbers out at 45. That's a different mathematical reason. We'll cover that with other indicators at another time. But the list here, you've got a fair few of them have been in the top 30 for more than 45 days. So a fair few of these companies are consistent performers, and you'll see that with some of the movements, 181, 132, 211% over the last quarter. What's interesting is that we can see some new names to the list. So in the last day or two, that just come into the list. The launchpad is where it gets interesting because as soon as we know who the momentum leaders are, everyone wants to identify, well, before they become momentum leaders, before they break out, how do we find them? And that's where the launchpad comes in, the second part of this 30/30 list. The days since hitting the launchpad becomes quite interesting. So we can see here with IPX, they re-entered the launchpad. That's why it only shows 5, but they've been in the momentum for 45 days. Quite often they'll rally, have a bit of a pause, and then they'll show up in the launchpad again and then hit the momentum again after their breakout. What we can see is that AZ9, it showed up in the launchpad the day before it became a momentum leader. And then we see a few others that came in on the same day. ATC, we're going to see a big jump on their chart about 30 days ago. 3 days prior, BrainChip hit the launchpad and then became a momentum leader. And then this is a re-entry of the launchpad, Sigma, SIG. 45 days for the launchpad for RSH. So we see RSH over here. Follow that. It's been in the top 30 momentum for 28 sessions, 45 sessions since it hit the launchpad. So this is telling us that IMR, similar sort of thing, it hit the launchpad 36 sessions ago, but only in the top 30 momentum, 18 sessions. So quite often, this is where the early indicators are. Now, don't get me wrong, there will be some times where they hit the launchpad and the top 30 momentum on exactly the same day. That's when they gap up, huge news, they break out, they're up 20, 40, 50% a day. They're not going to show up in the launchpad before then. That's not often news or event driven. We also want to know, well, if they did hit the launchpad, how much are they up since they hit it? And you can see this sort of movement here. So up 230%, 230%, two of them actually. You can see their sort of movements since hitting the launchpad and how much they've progressed. So we can sort of filter by that as well by looking at this list and see which ones are up the most. Then we come into the launchpad itself. Really only makes sense to sort this by momentum rank because this is how the list is represented to those who can see it, and this is sent to them on Thursdays. Rate here on the left also corresponds to the rate here for the Launchpad. So number 1 is GCI, QHL number 2, NEU, NVU, SLH, and so on and so on. So these are companies that have performed well in the last week. And quite often, what we look for is a thematic across this group. We want to see if it lights up the Launchpad. We want to see a whole lot of gold companies or uranium or lithium, real estate property trusts or LPTs. They've also lit up the list previously. What happens is that's quite often a precursor to that whole thematic running for weeks and weeks on end. What we do see is it can be anywhere between 2 weeks to 6 weeks is a general lead-in time of when they light up this Launchpad before that whole theme then starts showing up here on the momentum list. So that's how we use the 30-30 list. If you want to see it in practice, we do this every single Friday. So the list is shared with YouTube members on a Thursday, and then they have some requests. Hey, look, I'd love you to look at NVX or 3DA or QHL on the list. Can you try throw that into the recording? We record that on Friday morning. Members get that video a little bit earlier, and then on Friday close about 4 o'clock, that's becoming a public video on YouTube, 4 o'clock, where we do go through and look at the charts and explain, well, here are the thematics that we're seeing maybe in the momentum or the Launchpad. And it really shows how we're utilizing this sort of research and identifying market opportunities, trading for breakouts, and then looking at the setups, understanding that volume price analysis, help ourselves get the trades, and then also utilize this list to stay on top of those market leaders. If you want to be a member and see the list, join below. You can also comment below if you've got more questions. If there were more things that you wanted to know about the 30-30 list, how's it calculated? How do we use it? What's the Launchpad mean? How do we identify those companies and what really identifies as a market leader? Put those questions below. Like the video to help the channel, and we'll come back with some more education.